Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Cosmic Cuppa with Jude. Tonight we have lovely Phillippa Corney with us. Hi, Phillippa. How are you?
Hi, Jude.
I'd like to read out, first of all, if I may, your bio. So Phillippa has a remarkable story, and I will read out her bio. I'm 66 years young, married to a wonderful, awake man, loving man. Unfortunately, no children, although had one child within the SRA cult. Live in and built my own home, and my hubby has his own home, whilst I'm still working. We both like our independence and our own space for now. I run a holistic healing practice from my home clinic, specialising in acupuncture, cupping, moxibustion, reiki, massage, craniofacial release, and harmonic tuning fork therapy. I prefer working from my own personal space, surrounded by a garden, giving a peaceful, relaxed sanctuary ambience experience. And it is beautiful. I have been to Phillippa's home. My essence and what I stand for: unconditional love, light, and truth. I consider holistic health an art form, according to the universal laws of 5 elements in nature: fire, earth, metal, water, and wood, which all have the same energetic functions and sequential key flow and rhythms, as nature itself therefore relates to our energetic meridians and internal organs. We are all made of the same substance: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. So we resonate with and are fed by nature. It is our heart key energy related to the fire element, which supremely nourishes and controls the other elements and organ functions within us. It is our life force which allows our heart to function. It is said in traditional Chinese medicine philosophy that the spirit of the heart resides in the mind, hence the heart-mind connection. We have feelings triggered by our 5 senses, first and foremost. Then we have thoughts. So I believe it's essential to tune into, connect, and follow one's heart. I've tried to create a comfortable, rustic, peaceful space with a vintage ambience for the interior, exterior of my home and clinic. I'm inspired by art, colour, texture, form, and plants, especially medicinal plants, as I was a florist for 35 years before training to be an acupuncturist. So I hope that others may be inspired by beauty too. Hence, I don't mind sharing my living room as a waiting room for my practice. I'm in the process of changing my business name from Clear Key Acupuncture to Heartsease Holistic Healing. This new name reflects a new way forward for me, as I will not comply to any health profession who has invested in the narrative of the last 3 years and has abandoned the #1 health ethic of do no harm. The Heartsease flower, viola, is a medicinal and edible plant and may treat cardio, heart, respiratory, skin, and immune issues, to name a few. These violas have always captured my heart in my garden, as they happily self-seed, and their little faces always allow my heart to smile. They're also called Johnny Jump-Ups, which mirrors my husband's name, so another good reason to love them. My prospective humanitarian project is to set up and run a children's home and healing sanctuary, which is conceptualized with the name Heartsease Children's Home and Healing Sanctuary. This is especially dear to my heart, as I am a satanic ritual abuse survivor. The children's home will essentially be for abused or abandoned children. My main message and reason for surviving and healing from satanic ritual abuse is to speak the truth, break the silence, share the light, God's message to let people know how we have all been brainwashed, suppressed, holistically abused, biologically attacked with bioweaponry, with our food, water, air, homes, land, EMFs, media, pharmaceuticals, government narratives, controls, regulations, negative social behaviours, all part of satanic ritualistic power and control tactics. How SRA evil has manifested has been the underbelly of all global corruption and violence. How SRA has been perpetrated and about the elite perpetrators. How holistically strong we are. How SRA survivors as children are humbly the epitome of holistic strength due to enduring the worst brutal atrocities perpetrated on one's spirit, emotional, mental, and physical beings, something Jesus Christ may not have suffered. Proving that evil perpetrated on children at this time in history is at its worst known to humanity. SRA survivors had to feel it. Knowledge is power. Knowing you are strong enough to hear it. How to heal. The healing process of an SRA survivor, post-traumatic stress syndrome, and dissociation. How to tune into and let the universal key into our systems to reclaim our quantum fields, our healing empowerment, our potential. How to articulate safer communication to each other. How to unconditionally forgive, but to not condone evil. And that's a big one. Phillippa has graciously agreed to talk to us today to bring to light the horrors of satanic ritual abuse, which many of us had no idea had been happening and is happening in our society. That these practices have been hidden to a large degree from the general public, and the evil perpetrated from the so-called elite today that have controlled world affairs beggars belief. Excuse the word, but I couldn't think of another that was more appropriate. From the top down, our affairs have been controlled and manipulated. Magic, what a word. Magic used to manipulate the masses, to keep control of the riches that rightly belong to the people, and a beautiful life that is our birthright. This is a story that needs to be heard. Please welcome Phillippa with an open heart and open mind. This is her story. She is truly a spiritual warrior. So thank you, Phillippa, for coming on A Cosmic Cuppa this evening. I honour you. I honour where you've been, and I honour where you are now and what you are doing. I wonder if we could start with, what are your first memories as a child? What do you remember of your sparkles you have talked about that you saw around you?
Wow. Firstly, thanks, Jude, for reading that bio. It was beautifully read. I'm feeling quite emotional actually listening to that. Yeah, what I remember of my sparkles. I just remember feeling very, very alive. Everything about me was kind of dancing energetically, and I felt really in tune and in touch with the universe, everything around me really. I remember my brain and my mind feeling very just really alive, and sparking. Just I guess it's quite a long time ago now. But I felt quite profound with it within myself. I just felt very hopeful and very like I had so much kind of hope for the future, and just light, really. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Are you able to talk about your home life in your younger years? And when you realised things were maybe a little different from other people's homes, that with friends you knew or other people you knew, what was going on for you early on?
Well, I remember being very warmly loved by my mother initially, and I felt happiness and joy, and I felt love. And then although I was abused by my grandfather when I was a baby, so I had remembered that in my healing process. That in itself allowed a part of me to feel very wary of certain people and certain energies, because that was quite profound in itself. And then nothing really much happened after that, but I guess it was about 2 or 3 years old. I was remembering things really well. My mother was, I guess, testing me or playing with me, and I could remember numbers really well. And I think she realized that I had, I guess, a gift, you might say, for that sort of thing. And I remember having fun with that. I felt really good about that within myself. And then it all kind of just turned to custard, really. She took me to some local men in our village, and I again had that kind of very weary feeling that I'd had with my grandfather. And it was like, uh-oh, this doesn't feel good. I think from that early age, I was just really aware of, well, I guess it wasn't hard to be aware of it because it was chalk and cheese, with feeling the sparkles and the light and everything. And then it was like, oh, this is not feeling good at all. So I was just very wary of these men, and they were very interested in what I could do and what I could see and what I could remember. And they kind of put me through a few tests, and I could see that they were really pleased with me. And that was all very well. And then I was, after that experience, I was taken to I guess my first ritual experience, and I was indoctrinated into the Satanic cult, where a lot of people were standing around, and it felt really ominous. I recognized some people, friends of my parents and people in the village, and that in itself felt quite strange, because I thought, well, you know, what's everyone doing? You know, what's this all about? It just didn't feel good. And then, you know, there were candles burning, and it was kind of in a church kind of atmosphere. And there were particularly two men, and they were all dressed up in kind of red, gold, and white kind of robes, and there was a bit of an altar, and everybody was kind of chanting, and then there was crosses cut on the palms of my hands, which really hurt, to say the least. And I was obviously horrified, but because my parents were there, you know, I kind of just had to go along with it. I was kind of reeling from it internally, but, you know, it was all very new, and I just thought to myself, what the F you, da-da-da-da. Didn't even know what that word was back then, but I can identify with that now, that was going on in my heart and my mind. And I just knew from then on that I just didn't like it. I didn't agree with it. I didn't want it to be happening. And so I guess from then on, anytime I was taken to anything after that, I just had this, you know, that same weariness and that, you know, ominous feeling, and yeah, just didn't like it at all. And of course, it just got worse and worse after that. And it was the stark realization that my parents weren't as normal as what they presented to the outside world, other than being at the cult gatherings. But because things were so awful in a cult setting, when we were not in a cult setting, when we were in normal life, everything seemed a whole lot better. Everything was good, and I guess I just learned to take the good with the bad, because I loved my parents, and I loved my mother especially, because we'd already shared that. You know, I had that positive experience with my mother, that I kind of was just all the time in those early years just trying to figure it all out. Didn't make sense, but yet, yeah, it was just incongruous to the love that I'd already felt. So I guess from then on, it just and then I had to witness other children being abused, and especially my brother being abused, and that was horrific. And that's the time when I just really started to kick up and rebel and scream out. And you know, I think systematically they knew that, you know, that was my weak spot, and they just played on that from there on in, really. Yeah.
Well, firstly, I'd like to say I'm so sorry you experienced that. It's something no child should ever have to go through. Would you say that you were part of an Illuminati family?
I didn't know that at the time, but when I went overseas later on, my first experience of being taken overseas with minders was when I was about 8 years old. And I learnt very quickly then who my minders from New Zealand were involved with, and a little bit more about what it was all about. And yeah, because I came into contact with royalty and other elite people in the world. So and later on I was taken to the Vatican, and I was more information was shared with me about the families in the global network. Yeah. So from that, that word Illuminati, I've never really liked it. I guess it was a gradual awareness that word was part of it. Yeah.
Would you say your indoctrination, for want of a better word, was given to you because of your talents, your gifts, your awareness? Or do you think that would have happened anyway?
I think it would have happened anyway. However, I was aware that I was part of the bloodline because of my grandfather. He was a little bit revered within the group, as I learnt later on when I came to Christchurch from Wellington. And yes, so I think I possibly would have been used anyway, but certainly that enhanced my appeal to the group, I guess, because they knew, and I knew from a very early age that those talents or skills were going to be exploited. It was made very clear to me in the beginning that that's what they wanted from me, and that I was to keep absolute silence. I wasn't allowed to talk to the rest of my family, the rest of my siblings about it, what I could do. I had to keep it under wraps. When I went to school, I was told that when I go to school that I wasn't allowed to share that with anyone, that it was just that we will look after you, we will teach you, we will help you with what you can do, and this just for us to know about. You're not allowed to share that with anyone else but us. So I guess I was kind of, I liked the fact that they liked that about me, and I liked the fact that I could use my light and my skills when I was with them. My mother refused after those initial initiations of them getting to know what I could do. She wouldn't share that with me at home anymore. So that was a great disappointment, and because I just wanted to have that loving interaction with her again, but that was a no. So I started to feel it just all had an ominous feeling about it after that. But nevertheless, I was able to be, I guess, the real me in that respect with the cult members, and that kind of had a double-edged sword to it, obviously. Initially I liked that, but I grew to not like that at all. I hated that about myself. I kind of grew to hate that within myself, of what I could do and what I could do for them. It became very, very difficult internally for me.
And silence seems to have been and be a big part of this cult, to
Yes.
keep silent, to not speak. And
Yes.
everyone is compartmentalized, as you were saying, even within family. So it's destroying family, it's destroying all sorts of structure that we hold holy, that you had to keep quiet.
Yeah, the great disappointment was that I wasn't able to share myself fully with my brother. I had to keep part of myself. I had to keep part of myself hidden and silent, even from I considered my brother that was old, just 16 months older than me. I had to keep that part of myself very, very secure and silent, and it was really saddening to me that I couldn't share that myself, or that part of myself, with him. Yeah,
absolutely.
he was my yeah, I just considered him my best buddy, really, because the
Yeah.
rest of the family were fast becoming my enemies. Even though I still love my parents, there was always that, oh my God, what? Who are these people? They're obviously my parents, but oh my gosh, I don't really want to be like them
No.
anymore.
No.
That became clearer and clearer.
Mm.
Yet, it's such a strong bond, a child and a parent. So it was confusing a lot of the time. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I'm going to put a wee caveat on and say, if there's anything you don't wish to talk about, please say so. But if you are able to share some of your memories about being groomed as part of a satanic cult? How did that work? What was the process?
Thanks, Jude. And yeah, I'm happy to share as much as I can, but I'm aware of other people's feelings too, and um, it's good if anyone is. I just like to say, if anyone is feeling vulnerable, um, just to know that. I guess my main message is, take your time with this and hearing about this stuff. Ask questions when you can. I'm happy to answer any questions at the end. But yeah, just get as much help for yourself as you can if you do feel vulnerable after hearing anything about this. But yeah, the grooming was very systematic. If you started to rebel or say no or scream out, which I did quite a lot of, I think I was quite hard to handle at times. There was direct punishment of sexual punishment, rape, being isolated without food and water to make you comply, put in a room and brainwashed, programmed. There was noise. You were just put in a room on your own as a child, and you just were bombarded with continual noise and messages about what you should do, what you shouldn't do, that you're a naughty, bad girl. That sometimes that would go on for like over an hour. And for a small child, that's quite a lot to handle. I used to just try to block things out and try to think of really positive, beautiful things, like loving my brother and being friends and playing around, playing with my friends and just thinking of nice things, color, just anything that took my fancy, really. I just tried to and I would say things to myself, like I'd sing to myself, for instance, during those times. Sometimes we were drugged, and I saw other children being drugged and used. I had to witness other children being hurt. I had to witness the satanic rituals where children were sacrificed, babies were sacrificed, which was horrific. Hated it, absolutely. There are no words for it, really. And bestiality as well. That was one thing that was worse than seeing a child. I don't know why. Well, I kind of know why, but I've kind of come to terms with that as an adult. But back as a child, I guess there was an innate resonance or feeling or sense there that animals were more vulnerable than humans, because humans took care of animals. You know, I'd seen that already, and yeah, I just, you know, I kind of knew that, okay, parents looked after children, and there was a certain amount of care going on, but obviously not in the Satanic rituals. But certainly in so-called normal life, there was care, and an appearance of loving children, and children being authentically loved, but then in the rituals it was just completely different. Everybody kind of turned into monsters. And I did see shape-shifting going on. I have only really acknowledged that about the whole thing this year and very recently. That was all just a bit too scary to want to acknowledge and remember until now. But anyway, yeah, so, you know, you just grew to know that someone at a cult gathering was going to be hurt, whether it be you, whether it be your brother, whether it be a family member. You just knew that someone was up for it, someone was going to be chosen. Sometimes we had to, as children, we had to choose someone else, which was horrific. But again, you just grew to know that someone was going to be hurt. So there was a resignation that you just became resigned to that, unfortunately. And if you didn't comply, you were just very abusively punished. And so there was just no way out. It seemed like everybody in my village was into it. I didn't know who wasn't into it or who was in it. I couldn't trust anyone. I lost trust in my family and my parents. The only person I really trusted was my brother, the one just, you know, a bit older than me. I had an older brother. I didn't trust him. He was 5 years older than me. I loved him, but I didn't trust him. There was a sense that he was looking out for me in a way that if I didn't comply or if I spoke, that he would tell on me, kind of like a minder. I think he was programmed as well to do that. Certainly parts of me were programmed, and I mean, I could naturally dissociate. It was inevitable that you dissociated from yourself from it. You just kind of went elsewhere in your mind and your heart. Sometimes I left my body because it was just too horrific. And I guess I did try to run away when I was about 3-4 years old. I ran at night. I crept out of the house at night and I ran away. And I ran and ran and ran and ran until I hid under a bridge. And I've since been back to Stokes Valley in Wellington, where I initially grew up, and I found that bridge where I hid under, and it was actually quite a long way. But of course the cult members caught up with me and dragged me back and punished me severely. So a lot of power and control tactics, really. It got worse when I got to Christchurch. As I rebelled, I was hung up by rafters and by my feet and swung against kind of masonry in this big building in Christchurch here. I was threatened to be thrown over cliffs in Dunedin. Dunedin was another place in New Zealand which was very well used, especially Larnac Castle in Dunedin. And abused, multiply raped and abused by and with animals as well, which was pretty horrific. Yeah. So, yeah, just all very pretty distasteful.
It must have been so hard for you, Phillippa, loving your family and yet knowing you couldn't trust them and that you never quite knew what was going to happen next. And I can only say I'm so sorry this happened to you. But I want to honour your strength and your determination to fight through. One of the questions I have, in your opinion, what is the purpose or purposes for satanic trauma? What is actually taking place energetically during these times? And why are children being targeted?
Well, I think children are targeted first to control the bloodline, secondly to control humanity, because if you can turn a child into a perpetrator, into a willing perpetrator, then they've got you for life, pretty much. And to control humanity as a whole. And also just for the gross sexual gratification of the elite or of certain people in the world. I think once you're in it, and unfortunately if you're indoctrinated into it as a child, chances are you might become a perpetrator if you can't find a way out of it. And then, of course, they've got so much on you. That was part of the threats, you know, of complying. The innate feeling of shame and disgust about it all, and shame about what's happened to you and what you've had to take part in. And the threat was, you know, we've got you on tape. And knowing that they can use that against you. And knowing that, you know, I was told that if I acted crazy or if I lost control, that I'd be sent to the loony bin. And at one stage, I was taken to a facility in Dunedin when it all got too much for me, and I was put in a straitjacket because I was screaming so much. And I was drugged to calm me down and make me comply. So that was always a threat that I would lose myself and lose it in public. You know, it was a no to show anything about what had gone on. You know, your life depended on the fact that you had to be good, you had to be showing politeness to show that you were okay. So, you know, it was kind of easy in a way because it was such chalk and cheese between cult and normal life, cult life and normal life, that you didn't actually want to remember anything anyway that had gone on. The dissociation was quite easy. Well, I found it easy. So you just took from normal life anything positive that you could put your hands on or hang your heart on. So yeah, so just really about the gross gratification of having power and control over a child and another human being, another adult. And really, as I grew up to know, it was all about money, and keeping the rich and the elite in the kind of lifestyle that they were accustomed to. They were really fearful of anybody else having any money that that could be better than they could procure for themselves. That was pretty much it.
And I think too, a lot of these so-called elite, I don't want to call them elite, but for want of a better frame,
Yes,
a lot of these people would be people that a lot of humanity looks up to as being in places of power to supposedly look after or manage systems that are meant to be for the benefit of humanity, or are looked up to as personages of high standing, when in fact the opposite is often the case. Would you agree with that?
oh, totally. Yes, we were, as children, we were groomed, and we came to know that, well, especially myself, I came to know that there were pillars of society that I knew darn well were abusive, but it was all kept quiet. And as I was groomed for a particular role in this particular group in New Zealand and in Christchurch here, I as I did have to comply, and I led them to believe that I was complying, but in my heart I wasn't. I always knew that one day I would, try to find a way out and tell on them, as the child within me kind of told myself. But as I grew up, the cult members, because they were quite, you might say, believing of me, I think I was a pretty good actress, or became a good actress in that respect of leading them to believe I was one of them. Unfortunately, that they started to share a lot of business information with me. So, and I knew that certain cult members were groomed to be lawyers, they were groomed to be accountants, they were groomed to be medical doctors, they were groomed to be nurses. They were told, you need to go and do this training because we need you in this role. So that was very apparent, even real estate agents, because properties were procured and wanted just for rituals. So I came to know that members were infiltrated in every aspect of our society. But the fear in and around that, the fear of ever speaking about anything like that to anyone, was just, I can't tell you how fearful it was. Fear that your head was going to be put on the chopping block, or my brother's head was going to be put on the chopping block. And of course, when I had a child within the group, that child's head was going to be put on the chopping block, and I was told that, that I would have to kill my own child. So, the fear is paramount, and it has literally taken me years and years of slogging through memories, and painful memories, of course, at that, to be able to even speak about it. I mean, I'm totally okay about speaking about it in the last, I guess, 5 years, you might say. I feel a whole lot more articulate about speaking about it, but at times, to be honest, I still get lost for words sometimes. I'm much better at writing things down. I'm a much better writer than I am a speaker. So
And you're doing brilliantly, I might
Oh,
add.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah. But
Could
yes,
you, sorry?
like, yeah. So I hope I answered your question. I probably got off track a wee bit, but yeah, I guess the particular roles, getting back to those, it was the elite and people in our society, they were very much in putting on a very good show of goodness, and we're doing this for your community, and we're this person. But I knew very well that they, that was just a facade and a charade. Prime ministers, celebrities, royalty, doctors, nurses. I knew firsthand that a lot of those people in those roles were into this cult stuff or satanic ritual stuff. Yeah.
Quite insidious when you think about it, isn't it? Again, talking about the people we would trust as being so-called experts in their field, after much training and do no harm business in whatever format they are sitting, that a lot of them cannot be trusted anyway. And how this is infiltrated right through society from the top down. It's really something to comprehend.
Yes.
Are you able to speak a little about the underground tunnels and facilities? And were you transported to other places through these tunnels?
Yes, I believe I was. I've only really just acknowledged that aspect of it all this year. When I remembered about being underground with, I hate to say reptilians. I had a very nasty, profound experience with one of them, and that was in an underground tunnel, and I'm pretty sure it was overseas, because I have a sense of being back in New Zealand and feeling reasonably safe from those reptilians, and knowing that I'd been dropped by them because they could see my light and that I was probably a Pleiadian, as I've come to know, or acknowledge about myself. So I do remember being taken overseas by plane, and I know I was on a ship at one stage going around the Cape of South Africa, and I do know that I went through one of the canals. I was in the Aegean Sea, where there was an awful device put down into the Aegean Sea to trigger the tectonic plate to make earthquakes.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Gosh.
that was when I became aware of bioweaponry and what they were into. But yeah, I'm aware that there's a huge underground under there. I haven't allowed myself to remember anything specifically than being underground when I had that reptilian experience. When my DNA was, I know my DNA was being cloned, or I was being cloned, and it felt like my DNA was being sucked out of me. I was aware that I was on my death's door when that was happening. And then in those moments, I became aware of my own light, in a profound sense that I was from Pleiades, and I knew that this particular reptilian knew that he couldn't deal with me anymore or touch me anymore, or take my light from me. And that, I guess that was a saving grace. And I was literally dumped after that. I was given back to my minders. So apart from that underground experience, I do have a great sense that I was taken underground and I was trafficked underground as well, but I haven't allowed myself to have any more memories in and around
That's
that.
absolutely fine. Would you say a lot of that time you would have been drugged as well at times?
Yes, and blindfolded.
Oh,
Yeah. Mm.
wow. You talked about disassociation, and I can quite understand why you would.
Yes.
How did you cope in your darkest moments when you disassociated? And what kept you focused on the light?
Well, that was kind of easy because I had a very amazing experience when I was about 3 to 4 years old, and I left my body because it was pretty horrific. I was being raped, and I just had enough by this stage. So much had happened, and I just wanted out. And I knew that I'd left my body, and I had this sense of traveling. And I came into contact with this amazing white light, unbelievable love and warmth. It's indescribable. And I can only describe it as feeling, I guess, assimilated to what I've heard about God and his presence and love and light. And I felt it, and it was heavenly. And I wanted to stay there. Didn't want to come back to
You
just
wouldn't.
experienced. So that was probably the greatest dissociation I'd had up until then. But I got the message from this being who I can only describe as godlike presence. I really kind of feel and sense that it was God. And I was given the message telepathically, I think, because in those realms, I understand now or comprehend now that you kind of don't need words. It's just like telepathy, is it?
Yes.
It's so quantum.
Yes.
And it reminded me of my sparkles. It was like, what I sensed as a young child with my sparkles. I'm kind of here with this right now. This is what I remember. This is what I know. So anyway, I got the message that it wasn't my time yet, that, I was reminded that I was on a mission. And it was like, oh yeah, okay, yes, I do remember that. I know who I am. Yeah, okay, I'm going to be okay. I got that message, you will be okay. So not that I really wanted to come back into my body, but I did. And that sustained me and has sustained me for all of my life, really.
And so would you say that you, that you pre-birth came in with a mission to go through what you went through to expose it to the light? Would you say that was part of your mission?
Yes, to expose it with light and with love, and to bring God's message, to help with humanity finding forgiveness. It's not condoning this evil behavior, but it's finding forgiveness. It's comprehending it, how people lose themselves. If you are severely traumatized and abused, how very easy it could become to lose oneself to it. I nearly did. So you know, it's about energy at the end of the day. It's about energy. And if you've got any semblance of light and love in your life left, if you haven't got a skerrick of it, you haven't got a hope in hell. So I can understand why and how these perpetrators lose themselves. I'm not condoning it. I don't agree with it, but I can comprehend how it's happened to them. And that's how I've been able to forgive my parents, because I know that my father, knowing my grandfather, I know how this very similar things would have happened to him. Because in normal life with my father, even though he abused and raped me, there were times when I saw the grace in him. There were times when I saw the love in him and the not wanting to be part of it. I saw that in the cult group and the rituals. I saw adults not wanting to be part of it. I saw children not wanting to be part of it, you know, but there was no way out for them. For whatever reason in their lives, they couldn't find a way out. I found a way out by the grace of God. I'm just eternally grateful for God's presence.
You can see how people can be so easily entrained.
Yeah.
Like we have been today with mainstream media, with repetition over and over and over. You can see how in these families that you have witnessed, the entrainment of generations, that I guess it sticks even within the cellular memories, coming down through the generations. And how amazing that you have come through as a soul into that family to shine your light, to break that violence, to break that darkness, to shine the light and show people the truth if they choose to accept your truth.
Yeah, not just me, Jude, it's everyone here. It's everyone, you know, we're all in this together. You know, SRA survivors, their voices are like gems. Please listen to them. You know, we have fought for our sanity to be able to speak to all, you know, to bring God's message to, you know, it is by the grace of God that a lot of us have been able to heal to this degree, to even be able to speak. So it's very important to share and to know, you know, it's not, we're all here. When none of us is better than anyone else. We're all here with each and every one of us to share and to love and to go forward with this knowledge of how we've become so entrapped. And yeah, in the last 3 years especially, how the programming of us all has happened, and everyone here today has all been a part of a satanic ritual. This whole charade, the whole last 3 years, is just one big satanic ritual.
Yes,
Sorry
you're quite
to say.
right. You are quite right, Phillippa.
Yeah.
This is a question with a lot of bits in it, and you can answer that which is appropriate. Would you please talk on the public's brainwashing, we've just been talking about this, through mainstream media to suppress, to holistically abuse, to biologically attack, with bioweaponry, poison our food, water, air, homes, land, through EMFs, media, pharmaceuticals, government narratives, controls, regulations, and negative social behaviours, all through satanic ritual abuse and control tactics. You've started to allude on that. Is there anything more you'd like to add to that?
Well, where do you start, really?
It's huge, and you don't have to go through every part of it, just maybe what comes to mind is most important.
Yeah, well, I guess pharmaceuticals, bioweaponry, food and water. I mean, all the regulations, all the compliances, the censorship, you know, the huge censorship on everyone in the last 3 years especially, or 3.5 years now, isn't it? Nearly coming up to 4. But the precluding all that, the systematic brainwashing in our movies, the messaging, the celebrity status, the symbols. I'm actually horrified to know now and to look back at all the symbology of satanic ritualistic stuff or symbology. It's been rife. That's kind of been the precursor to it all.
And that's kind of a language in itself, isn't it, Phillippa?
It is, yeah.
All through symbols.
Yeah, it is, yeah. Yes, unfortunately, to brainwash the young children, the teenagers, into drugs, and, you know, the messages and the music, to desensitize everybody as far as sexuality goes, like pornography, like hello, you know, like exposing children to that, you know, what's happened to making love, you know, everything is sexualized. This is all part of the systematic programming. You know, people talk about pornography being consensual, like hello, who in their right minds needs to sell themselves for money? You know,
and making a genderless society as well.
yes, yeah. All those insidious kind of things that have crept into our social behaviors, you know, vaping, you know, just stuff like that, you know, just things that have become seemingly normal, that are socially negative, that are healthy negatives, you know, for our holistic health. Religions, you know, and, you know, I don't want to offend anybody, but, you know, let's get back to spirituality. A lot of, you know, there's good and bad in a lot of religions. I'm not saying that some religions are all bad, but, you know, let's just get back to the basics. Yeah, because, you know, in the money trail, follow the money trail. You know, it's all about big business, selling arms, selling drugs, selling, you know, this, that, and the other thing. But you know, the messaging is a big one. That's been a big precursor to all of it. And it's the underbelly of, you know, indoctrinating children and teenagers and adults into the satanic ritual world, the networks. Yeah, that's how they get people, that's how they have people or information on people, and how they get power and control over people because of people's weak, you know, vulnerabilities or weaknesses, or I hate that word weakness, but vulnerabilities. If they've been up to no good in any arena of their lives, you know, that's how you know, the global elite have power and control over people. Yeah.
Did you feel in your growing up years, going through what you've experienced, any time you could have spoken to anyone for help? Is there anywhere you could have gone, or anyone you could have spoken to that would have your back?
No, I didn't feel that at any time I could trust anyone. There were there were times when I thought, oh, maybe that person seems nice, they seem, I'm not sure whether they're in it or whether they're not in it, but I still couldn't trust them. I tried a couple of times, but then I got burnt by that. There were people within the group that were systematically told to befriend you so that you did trust them. This was kind of early on as a systematic training. But then you found out, you did trust them, and then you found out that they would tell on you and they'd say to the cult hierarchy that you'd spoken and that you would get severely punished for that. So you just grew to know that you just couldn't trust anyone. It wasn't really until I got myself out of it and I pretty much told them where to go and that I wasn't one of them finally, that bit by bit, year by year, it took years for me to actually trust anyone. I trusted my brother still, but even my first husband, I wasn't quite sure whether he was in it or not in it. But I got married. I really liked him. I loved him. But I realized 3 years later that I didn't love him in a romantic way. So I left. I kind of fessed up and left my husband, which was awful to let him down like that. But I just knew that I wasn't going to be happy and he wasn't going to be happy. I needed to free both of us. So, I was aware then that he wasn't one of them. But, at times, not during a marriage, but certainly up until I got married, I was still a bit wary. I couldn't trust anybody much at all. I trusted a good girlfriend and another few friends, but other than that, not anyone really.
Is there anything you would like to say to anyone listening, as this will go on YouTube as well, on anything you would suggest they could do if they need help? Is there any avenue you would suggest?
Yes, definitely listen to survivors and talk to survivors if they're open. Talk to any safe people who are willing to listen to you. Seek professional help, counselors, but only safe ones. Unfortunately, there are unsafe ones out there, unsafe therapists out there, I hate to say. But you trust your intuition, you'll know in your gut, and if it turns out that you've made a mistake, that's fine, just move on. We all make mistakes. Acupuncture is very good for releasing trauma, stress and trauma. It releases stress and trauma from the system very gently. But in and around that, or any kind of therapy, you need to make time for yourself to heal. Time, to have space for yourself to grieve. Because this will be a huge grieving process for everyone. Even to admit to themselves that they've been duped by all this, because people don't want to admit that they've perhaps made a mistake or they've misjudged, that their intuition has failed them or that they haven't tuned into their intuition, that they haven't trusted themselves enough. Please don't worry about that. Just accept the way how things have been for you and be gentle with yourself, love yourself. It's about loving ourselves first and foremost. And if you have any fear, speak to someone, speak to a friend, just ask for help. I found it really hard to ask for help, but you know, we must all ask each other for help and speak to each other and love each other. You know, and if we can't hear each other, then be honest about that and say, look, I'm sorry, I can't hear you today. I'm going through my own stuff. It's not that I don't want to hear you at the moment, but just at the moment, I need a few days, you know, perhaps ring me next week and we can have a chat. You know, just safely communicate and not blame someone else for the way you are feeling. You know, please don't blame a survivor for the way you might be feeling. You know, or blame yourself for not feeling like you can cope, but just reach out for some help, because help is out there. There are safe people out there. There's millions of safe people out there. And do the, you know, if you're in danger, do the sign, you know, I am being trafficked, I am being abused. You know, let people know that you're not comfortable, that you're not feeling safe. And, you know, write things down. If you can't speak, if you can't even find the words to what you're hearing, just write things down and let a friend know. You know, that was one of the biggest things in my relationship when I was going through my healing process. Sometimes I couldn't speak, but I would just write things down, how I was feeling. And writing was very cathartic. And screaming. You know, don't fear your anger. It's okay to be angry. We're allowed to be angry. It took me years to get over my anger and grief. Anger, there's anger, and then there's grief underneath the anger. So it's important that we voice our anger, our disgust with the whole thing. But it's important to say, I am angry with what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing, not with the person. I'm angry with this. I'm so upset and I'm sad and I'm really angry at this. I'm angry that this has been allowed to happen. But it's not anyone's fault. It is the fault of evil if we want to lay blame at anyone's feet. But even evil, you know, has come to it because of a fall from grace. You know, I'm still not condoning it, but it's comprehending it again. Yeah.
Phillippa, thank you so much. Those messages are so powerful to those who may need to hear them. Thank you so much. This sign, is this Braille?
I'm not sure, Jude, but it's been put on. Gloria Masters, who's a wonderful advocate for child abuse, sexual abuse, and satanic ritual abuse in New Zealand here, she has put that sign out there. It's a global sign now, I think. I'm not sure where it comes from, but yeah, it's just thumb and like that.
Thank you so much. In fact, I made a mistake. Braille is feeling the bumps to the words.
Yeah.
So sign language is what I meant to say. That's very powerful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And also getting it out of your system. I've had several guests on that talk about using the voice to release, or writing it out, or doing ritual with writing it out and burning, watching everything dissipate into ashes, with all of your angst going up in flames, giving it to the universe. Yelling, screaming. Best way to do it, we've been talking about, is in a car where no one can hear you, doesn't matter. You get it out. You tone it, you whatever comes out, comes out. I've been hearing this more and more, Phillippa, as to releasing. We've got to release it from the body, from the mind, from the soul.
That's
release
right.
it to start the healing. So let's talk about the healing, Phillippa.
Yes. Yeah.
It is strong. You have such courage and amazing determination. how did you start your healing journey and move through the post-traumatic stress syndrome and disassociation that you suffered from? What was the start of your healing journey? How did that happen, and how did that start to evolve?
It started in my second relationship with my dear loving husband. We each did not know how to communicate safely, and it wasn't until I kind of got pretty exhausted with it, because it reminded me of, I was feeling very much, or being triggered into emotions of the past where I felt very unsafe emotionally. And there was a lot of blaming going on, and being shut down on, and that sort of thing. And I knew love. I knew what it was to love. I knew how love wasn't, and I knew what I wanted. So I initiated relationship counseling for us, and we went along, and we met this wonderful woman, and we were away on holiday whilst we were in counseling, and I had this horrific memory. It was around the time we went to the Coromandel and stayed at my husband's parents' bach, and it was just when that guy had committed this horrible murder in New Zealand, and he was kind of let loose in and around that Coromandel area. And I remember seeing a picture of him on the local dairy, and I remember feeling, I just could see the evil within his presence, just on the picture. And anyway, later on, a few days later at Batch, my husband and I were having difficulty again communicating, and I was just feeling quite, upset and disappointed and distraught, because we were supposed to be having a holiday. Anyway, just not, normal stuff. And anyway, my husband left, and I guess I felt quite abandoned, and I just remember crying, and that's when the first memory came to me. And I was huddled under my parents' oak dining room table in Stokes Valley, and I remember feeling great fear in and around. I knew my father was on the other side of the table, wanting to get me out of being under the table, and I heard this car coming up our driveway, and I knew it was those men coming to pick me up. So that was my first memory. And I knew I was being taken to a ritual, and the fear was paramount, and I was terrified. So, always something in the present triggers emotions from the past. So after that, when we got home from our holiday, I relayed that memory to my counsellor, and she said, very kindly, PJ, which was my nickname, and she said, I know about this stuff. I can help you with this. So I started individual counselling with her. And from that, I learned how to safely heal, to put it in a nutshell, safely communicate in the past and with the present. So it was a long healing process that I went to counselling for weeks for 20 years, week in and week out. And I just became very articulately strong and assertive in my relationship, and that allowed encouraged my husband to deal with his emotionality eventually. So sometimes it always takes one person to break the cycle for themselves, and then, you know, the other partner follows through. But it was very difficult in the early stages when the lid came off the Pandora's box. My counsellor referred me to my GP, and my GP was I did trust him. You know, this was in my 30s, early 30s. I was about 31. And I felt safe with him, and he supported me with a no drugs approach. I did go on antidepressants for a wee while, and then I got pregnant and then miscarried because I came off them cold turkey, which I was recommended to me to do, but which I shouldn't have done, but of course didn't know about that. And then and I was referred to a psychologist, and so a lot came out then. I was regressing into a catatonic state as a child, and it was very difficult for my husband to witness that, and hard for me as well, because, you know, I was dissociating back into those memories, and I was feeling like a child again. But yet I knew still who I was, and it was like, oh my God, you know, what the hell's happening? You know, I kind of, it felt familiar, but yet not unfamiliar, but yet kind of just weird. So that was it was a very difficult time for both of us. So we've weathered a major storm really together. Hasn't been easy. And my husband unfortunately shut down a lot because he found it very difficult to cope with, and that caused a lot of problems. And didn't want to deal with his emotionality, but has since then that has happened, and we're just so grateful that we've had the tenacity and the integrity to hang in there and get through it all. So we both feel very blessed with each other now, and so it's been a parallel process with past and present. Yeah.
Interesting, isn't it? Thank you so much for allowing yourself to be so raw and true. I so appreciate your openness and your honesty. And of course, in your vulnerability, there is such strength. It is a strength to allow that to occur in this format. So, gosh, thank you so much. I think we're learning a great deal about the human psyche, but not only that, the human spirit, which is an amazing, amazing thing. The strength of the human spirit.
Yeah, and that, I guess that's the main message, that we are all strong, to hear it, to feel it, to heal from it. I think anybody in my situation would have done the same. We are incredible beings, and it's either fight or flight. You either go with it or you die. That's it. So yeah.
The essence of what you stand for, Phillippa: unconditional love, light, and truth. Can you speak of this, please, and how you relate it to the heart energy of Ki or Chi? I'm not quite sure how you pronounce that. The energy related to fire, which is the life force, and why it's important to follow one's heart.
Yeah, yes, it's pronounced Chi.
Thank you.
Qi, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I guess, we're, as I said, we're all carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. So we're substantial energy. It's our cells and our tissues and our blood, which is substantial. It's dense matter. But our chi is referring to our yang energy, the words yin and yang in Chinese medicine. Yang refers to functionality and energy. So when our substance, when our physical matter deteriorates to a point of passing over, our spirit leaves our body. So we're still here. Our spirit is still here in any realm it wants to be in. So our heart, you know, not a lot of people are asked about or even think about what makes your heart tick. You know, what makes our liver function? What makes our heart function? It is our spirit. It's the heart chi, the spirit in the heart. In Chinese medicine, it's said that the spirit of the heart resides in the mind. So it's your heart which is the supreme control over your system. So if your heart's in the right place, if you're authentic, if you're truthful, if you're honest, then your heart will command the rest of your physiology and your system. So we have immense depth within ourselves. Our quantum fields are huge, anteriorly, like in front of us, and posteriorly behind us. So it's our energy which drives our quantum field, and more at a deeper level within us, at our yin level, at our substantial level. So we can put up protections in and around ourselves. We're only vulnerable to pathogenic invasion if our quantum fields are vulnerable. But it's the belief system that we've all been programmed to believe, that we're only this when we're actually, you know, this. If I can get my hand on the screen.
Yes.
You know, and I think we're just all coming to realize that, you know, that we are one with in the universal energy out there. It's a matter of just letting that light in. And, you know, our belief systems have been dumbed down so much. And, you know, when we're given a diagnosis, you know, it's the human spirit is so underestimated and kind of unrelated to our physical natures, our physiology. But if only, you know, we started to believe that we have control over our systems and we have control over healing ourselves. There's so many medicinals out there in nature. We are nature itself. The universal chi is nature itself.
Definitely.
Yeah, the 5D realms, the 3D realms, the 4D realms, the 6D realms, and so on. There's many dimensions out there. We are multi-dimensional, and we're all part of that, I believe. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Had kind of first-hand experience to believe that. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. We are multidimensional. We do not know our own power because we've, as you say, led to believe that we're only so big when we are not. And it's in these times, I think, gaining back our sovereignty and our wisdoms and our knowings and learning more about who we truly are at our very, very deep levels, which you have certainly been doing in your lifetime. And Phillippa, to go from, if I can say, a beginning of where you've been to now wanting to help so many other people, talk about a seesaw of placement in your life, of what you want to achieve. And I can understand why you would come into this realm of wanting to help others now because of where you've been. Can you talk a little bit about what got you into your practice called Clear Chi Acupuncture, where you've worked as a therapist, specializing in acupuncture, cupping, moxibustion, reiki, massage, cranial facial release, which is amazing in itself, but it goes on. Harmonic tuning fork therapy to heal others. And can you talk about your passion in this field with this particular practice you have had, please?
Yeah, I first got into acupuncture because I'd actually had acupuncture therapy for post-trauma. I knew I'd had years of counselling, as I said, and also hands-on self, massage, safe touch. So, but I always knew that there was more depth within me to be released. That was one of the hardest things in healing, by the way, that, I knew how much was within me, but trying to convey that to other people around me to let them know that, yes, I was going to get through it, because the fear for them was that I was, never going to get through it. I was never going to get over it. I was told several times, why don't you just forget about it and just get over it? That's the worst thing you can say to a survivor. So I knew. But anyway, and of course, I didn't want to share too much or tell people how much more I had to deal with, because they were going to be afraid of, oh my God, still more, but of course they didn't know how much had happened. So I knew. So when I heard about this acupuncturist and reiki light healer, I thought, I've got to go to him. And it was this lovely Chinese guy in Christchurch here that I went to, Richard. And so I had many treatments with him and reiki, and I was able to acknowledge some past lives, and that helped me, knowing why I had come into this life, and more about who I was on a spiritual level. So that was a really amazing thing in itself, and I recognized that I'd actually had a past life with Richard. Anyway, so I was actually sick of being a florist, even though that might sound funny, because as much as I love flowers and the colour and the artistry of it all, it's quite a physical, demanding job. So I just wanted to do something different. And of course, I wanted to use my brain finally, because that had been so suppressed and that part of myself pretty much stolen from me. So I finally just wanted to do something a little bit more worthwhile in the world, because, floristry is a luxury item. And just knowing that acupuncture helps people heal so much. So it was a natural progression. Yeah, it was just a natural evolvement. So I went to acupuncture college and studied, and the introduction actually got me hook, line and sinker, because it was all about nature and 5 elements and the philosophy, and it just resonated with me, with quantum physics and of course nature and how everything nourished each other. And I was like, oh my God, finally something in this life makes sense to me. So I went for it and got a student loan, and and did the 4 years training, and it was amazing, and I loved every minute of it. I studied my heart out, and of course I was reclaiming part of my memory skill back, my photographic memory. Not that I think I've recovered much of it, and of course through this COVID thing our memories have been bombarded with EMF, and we're all memory depleted at the moment, so hopefully that'll come back. Anyway, so yeah, so just very passionate about it, I guess, because I have kind of walked the talk and felt it at depth, felt healing at depth, and I guess I've been reclaiming my intuitiveness back. I realize now, as a child, I could see or telepathically feel and sense spirits, and even see spirits. More these days in the present, when I'm treating, when I'm tuning into someone's cranium and facial muscles, and tuning in with their central nervous system, their governing vessel, and the Renmai vessel coming up through the middle, where all the chakras are, I can sometimes invariably get insights into that person's history and what's happened to them. And I assimilate that with the emotions of the 5 elements. Because once you know the body in that respect with the meridians and the acupuncture points and how that interrelates with all the emotions, then it's not really rocket science. It's, and you're feeling hands-on where the blocks are. So I just kind of intuitively tune in on that level. So yeah, to bring that forward into a healing sanctuary would be ideal, and collaborate and work with other like-minded, like-hearted practitioners would be absolutely ideal. And of course, I just would love to have children in my life. Love children. For what I couldn't do back then, my heart and my soul just wanted to save so many children, but I couldn't speak to them. I tried whenever I could to help them and not be seen to be helping them. That was one of the hardest things with the satanic ritual abuse stuff, to just have to resign to the fact that you couldn't help someone when you really wanted to. So to be able to help children, provide a home for them, to provide a safe, happy home for them, that's what I want more than anything for the children in the world who don't have parents, who are abused or abandoned, and who can't be parented by their parents now. I would just love that in a garden setting, obviously. Can't do without a garden or plants. So that would be ideal. So yeah, that's my passion. And hopefully collaboratively we can all do that at some stage, hopefully not in the too distant future.
Absolutely. I'd like to talk
Yeah.
a little bit about that a wee bit further on, if I may. Can you please talk about your new business called Heartsease Holistic Healing, why you changed the name, and where you see this going? And I've put here, can you speak about the children in your new venture? So you're answering the questions before I ask them, which is interesting. It's how it often happens, Phillippa.
Yeah.
I love the way that the synchronicities happen. So maybe talking a wee bit more about that too, please. But Heartsease Holistic Healing, and maybe if you are open to talking about what you want to set up with the children.
Yeah. Well, I guess it just came to me one day, the name Heartsease. Can't remember quite how, but violas, they're little Johnny jump ups. They're always springing up in your garden. And I've always known them to be Johnny jump ups or Heartsease. And when I was thinking of a name for the children's sanctuary, and it just came to me, that name. And so now I'm changing my business name from Clear Chi Acupuncture to Heartsease Holistic Healing .art will be the domain name. I'm still hopefully it'll be up and running mid-December. So, and it just fits in with the children's home and healing sanctuary that I would like to set up. Of course, that will be Heartsease Children's Home and Sanctuary. So hopefully I can set up and run the two together and integrate them together. Of course, the children's home will take up all of my time, and I will prioritize that time, because the paramount thing is safety and happiness. But alongside that, I would definitely like to integrate a healing sanctuary within the same property or close by, so that at times I can have maybe an input with it there. But for the moment, until the children's home is set up, I'm running my business from home, and I'll be carrying on doing, as of March, officially, I won't be able to practice acupuncture anymore because I don't want to comply to the Ministry of Health regulations, and register with the new Chinese Medicine Council. So officially I won't be able to practice acupuncture anymore come March 24. So I'll be doing acupressure, activating the acupuncture points with tuning forks, and doing more intuitive healing, and
Yes.
offering online healing for trauma and satanic ritual abuse survivors as well.
Oh wow, that's fabulous. That's fabulous. And Phillippa and I and a couple of others are on a planning committee for a healing centre I wish to open as soon as possible, actually. We're just all waiting on the right timing. But we are hoping to collaborate together, which I think will be amazing. Absolutely amazing. So there's a lot for everyone to look forward to, isn't there, Phillippa?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, it's going to be, yeah, I have no qualms, or my faith is pretty steely, I must say. I don't have, everybody gets, I mean, I at times, I must admit, I'm kind of tired of waiting around for, the big reveal and the, come on, everybody, let's wake up and all that sort of thing. But, we will get there. I have complete faith in the light.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
will. We absolutely will.
Yeah.
It is coming. In our lifetime, it is coming.
Yes. Yeah.
Cannot wait. You say knowledge is power, and it is. Knowing you are strong enough to hear it, all of it, and that you and others endured it, all of it. Can you speak of tuning into the quantum fields to let the universal chi into our systems to heal for our empowerment and potential? Can you speak a little of that, please?
Yeah. Well, there's a stargate between your hip bone and your pelvic bone, which we can all access. I had a visual insight of this quite a few years ago when I was in the depths of healing, and I always put my right hand, just place my fingertips between my hip bone and my pelvic bone, and then I just place my left hand on top of that. So it's connecting. It's like we have a placenta, an energetic placenta going right up to the Milky Way, and we can draw in universal light and love energy and frequencies in through this gate. And I've just nicknamed it Stargate, because the stars in the universe remind me of the acupuncture points. I personally, I liken the acupuncture points on our body, and there's over 360 of them, which we can all access, and have them open to positive energies coming in. Obviously not negative ones. We want to let those negative energies know, you're not coming in, not today, not any other day, thank you very much. And I find if we let that negative energy know that we know that that's out there, that's enough, to command and keep our quantum field safe. So anyway, getting back to the Stargate, we can pop our hands there. I pop my left hand over my right hand, and I do this when I'm lying down, mostly at night or in the morning, and I pretty much do it kind of every second or third day, depending on whatever needs I have. Depends how busy I've been at work, and just allow that energy to come in, and you can feel it coming in and flowing up through your center, and you will feel very nurtured and nourished. And you just leave your hands there for as long as you feel that nourishment and nurturement, nurturing coming into your center. And then you'll know as soon as you feel kind of topped up, just to let your hands come away, and then you can just get up and get on with your day. So there's that within your system. There's points up here. There's a point called on the bladder meridian called receiving light. There's Do 20, which is on the governing vessel. It's called Ba Hui, and it's 100 meetings. We can bring Qigong, Qi energy in through this gateway. And then this is a gateway, Yin Tang, which is your third eye, which is good for your pineal gland. And then a gateway here at the top of your shoulders. And then another gateway just below your tummy button. So they're Qi gateways. So it's a matter of just opening your belief system up, opening your spirit, your mind, your heart up to connecting with what is out there, to positivity, to positive ions. We get positive ions in nature. We get positive ions from pets and trees and putting our feet on the ground. So there's so many things that we can do. Meditation. I've just come across this wonderful tuning fork plate. It's called a neutral space plate. It's got copper geometric designs on it, so we can place our fingertips on that. You can order one of those yourself through Amazon.au, and there's a whole booklet about spiritual protocols which you can do for yourself. There's so many things out there. Connecting. It's about connecting our hearts with back to our true selves and our souls at soul spirit level. Yeah.
Beautifully said. Thank you for sharing about those stargates too. And I love the way you likened our stars to the acupuncture points. It's quite beautiful, because what are we a part of that's much greater than us?
That's right.
If we were inside a body of something and were made infinitesimally small and looked up, we would see a night sky full of stars. Yes. So what are we really a part of? It's an interesting proposition, isn't it, to ponder?
Yeah, that's right.
You speak of unconditionally forgiving, but not condoning evil, which I agree. Excuse me. This is a huge rite of passage for anyone. Would you speak about your understanding of forgiveness and how this process heals?
Well, I guess it's always putting yourself in the other person's shoes. I had to do that with my lovely husband and my perpetrators, and anyone that I felt disappointed in or angry with. I had to own my own anger. I couldn't blame anyone else for my anger. When you're touched emphatically with satanic ritual abuse, you're only left with yourself and with God, with love, light, or evil. So it's not a bad choice. It's an easy choice, really. So, but again, as I said before, it's about energetically not losing yourself to, not losing sight of the love or the light within yourself. And unfortunately, some people do, as I said before, because maybe for them there's just not any light in their lives at all, love in their lives at all. So they just probably think, oh, well, like no one's caring about me, so why the hell should I care? I don't care. I hate myself so badly. I hated myself for years. I hated myself for what I had to do. I hated everything about about it all. I despised my skills, I despised myself. So I had to forgive myself first and foremost. And that happened one day when my counsellor asked me, when I was very distraught, obviously, and, well, not obviously, but, you know, for me, obviously, and she said to me, but PJ, she said, did you really want to do that? Did you want any of this to happen? And I said, no. I knew in my heart, no, I didn't want any of it to happen. I hated it with a vengeance, you know, not that I wanted to take revenge, but I didn't want to take revenge because, you know, I saw people in the group taking revenge and I didn't want to be that person. I knew it was superfluous. I knew it didn't get anybody anywhere. That I was showing that in the cult group. So it taught me a lot about people's vulnerabilities, about people's anger, about why people did things, about why people needed to be gratified, you know, the whole 9 yards of it. So, yeah, but in essence, it always came back to myself. I didn't want to be that person. I knew who I was. And I was reminded time and time again by God's presence, not just with that early 3 to 4 years old white light experience. I felt God's presence a few times after that when there was some really horrific stuff happening. So I had to own my own anger about myself first up, and forgive myself. And that day, it threw a light on that subject. Thank God for my counsellor. Thank God that she had the nous to ask me that question. I'll be forever grateful to her and for her. She was an angel sent from heaven, I'm sure. So, and then I had to, you know, own my anger about my father and then my mother. It was harder to own and acknowledge my anger about my mother, because for a woman to abandon a child was pretty horrific. But in going through the memories of me and my mother's role in the group and what happened and at specific times and incidents, I came to realize that my mother was so much under their power as well, as a woman, and especially a woman in the 50s and 60s. You know, women, you know, they didn't divorce their husbands. They complied. They just had to go along with it. You know, it wasn't a done thing for too many women to be leaving their husbands. Anyway, I don't know for sure, but I suspect that my mother was used in a similar way when she was growing up. So yeah, so I had to, yeah, I guess, you know, come to terms with all that and put myself in their shoes. And once I recognized that, oh my gosh, you know, this has happened to my father, this has happened to my mother, probably, I can see in both sides of my family how this has happened, how everybody's been kept silent. I believe one of my aunts knew what was happening, but, you know, she was kept silent. So yeah, so once I got to that place within myself, and you know, I'd forgive them, and then another memory would come up, and then I'd get angry again, and then I'd have to go through the process of finding forgiveness again. So, you know, it didn't happen overnight. And then, of course, particular incidents with my perpetrators, and you know, I could just see how the whole damn thing was just so infiltrated and perpetrated, and how everyone was indoctrinated. And you know, then I remembered seeing particular perpetrators. I remembered them being vulnerable and you know, their particular roles in it and everything. And you know, I could see who were the most evil ones and who were the ones that were just going along with it because of their position, and did it, you know, it's, yeah. So once you comprehend all that, it's, you know, forgiveness. You don't ever agree with what they've done. You don't condone what they've done, but it just, you can see the sadness in it all, just the sorrow in the whole thing of why it actually even started in the first place. But, you know, someone started it way back, you know,
Absolutely.
the year
Absolutely.
dot.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you. I also feel that by people like yourself speaking out, it's got to have a ripple effect. And I would only hope that through people like you, Phillippa, being so brave and courageous, can bring an end to what is going on, even if it's bit by bit by bit. It's like, this has got to stop. We cannot be treating our children and our loved ones in this way. It's not coming from love. It's not coming from source. It's not coming from truth.
Yeah.
It has got to stop. So is there anything you would like to say as a message to humanity for the unveiling of truth, justice, wisdom, and mostly love? Is there a message you would like to say?
I think we have to speak to evil itself on a spiritual quantum level. I don't know, without speaking to God directly, I don't know whether that's possible to appeal to evil's better nature. But if there's love in the world, and there's universal love, I cannot see why that can't happen. You know, because unless we meet evil, the heart of evil, and forgive evil, we're no better off. We can't move forward. And I know that's a long shot, but I believe that that's possible. And I'm putting that might be, I'm kind of going from Z to A, you know, on a continuum of healing or progress or evolution. But nevertheless, I think we can get there from Z to A if we're at Z, you know.
Yes.
I'm not sure, you know, I can't quantify that at the moment, but yeah, why not? You know, that's the ultimate love.
Yes, absolutely, the ultimate love.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, because if we condemn another person for what they've done, no matter how evil it is, we're no better than evil itself.
True.
To put it in a nutshell. And I know that might be hard for other people to hear. And I'm open to discussion about that. It's a big discussion. Yeah.
I do think these people need to be stopped.
They do.
How that outcome happens is not up to me to judge.
Yeah.
But there's got to be peace on earth. There's got to be love in people's hearts. This is the new way forward. This is what we're all moving toward. And one by one, we're going to make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Phillippa, as a last, did you want to say something?
I was just going to add there, Jude, I think evil needs to be quarantined. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, good answer.
Universally quarantined for a time, you know, like in a timeout zone, you know, just like you put you ask another person to take a time out because of negative behavior. So that's, excuse me, that's what I believe we need to do with evil. Yeah.
That's very well said. I like that. I like that answer. As a final roundup, is there anything else you would like to say before we open it up to questions?
I think that's pretty much covered everything, Jude. Thank you for your great questions. Forgive me if I went on a bit long about anything, but yeah, it's a big subject, isn't it?
A very big subject, and no, you didn't go on too long. I want to thank you so much, Phillippa, for opening your heart and telling people a part of what your life has been, but how you've pushed through remarkably and into what you're doing now. You truly are a light, and I can only see amazing things happening for you from here on in. You have such strength and such empowerment, and I know you would have had great help from above as well to guide you through this process, to keep you relatively safe. I wouldn't say you were safe, but to get you to where you are now. So just before we open up to questions, what do you offer people and where can they find you?
They can find me at the moment on acupuncture.com. And so all my contact details are there. And yeah, as I say, by mid-December, I'll have the Heartsease Holistic Healing .art up and running. So if people click on the clearchiacupuncture.com, that will take them to the new website. Yeah.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. This has just been an amazing evening, a real eye-opener. And it's a story I think we have needed to hear to bring love back into humanity, to bring the truth out, to bring wisdom forward. I cannot thank you enough, Phillippa. So with our lovely soul family here, does anyone have a question for Phillippa today? If you do, please raise your hand. How are you, Andy?
Very well, thanks. I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say, wow, Phillippa, you're amazing. Your journey has been astronomical and your strength is just immeasurable. That's all I wanted to say is, wow, you're awesome. And thank you for sharing your story. It was incredible.
Oh, thanks, Andy. Well, I'm just so grateful that we have these beautiful people with us as yourself, and you know that we have these platforms that we can share and support each other with now. You know, it's just, that's the great thing that's come out of the last 3 years, that we've connected with so many more like-minded and like-hearted souls, and it's just great. It's divine intervention, I think. and I just want to add, you are, it's not just me and other survivors. We're all survivors. We're all light beings. We're all our hearts are in the right place, and together, we've all had traumas and bad experiences in our lives. So I want to acknowledge all of you too. You've all, been on a similar journey. Mine's just been a bit different, in maybe a bit more depth, but yeah, nevertheless, we're all of the same light, and we've all got God's message to bring forward, and enjoy the next umpteen years, hopefully together. So thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Andy. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Mum. Hi, Phillippa. No, I don't have a question for you. Again, I just want to thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I have heard your story a few times now, and honestly, it doesn't get any easier hearing it. But I'm so proud of you for being fierce and strong and being able to tell your story, and just how far you've come with your own healing and what you've done. I'm immensely proud of you. So you go, girl.
Oh,
Yeah. Thank you, Phillippa.
Karen. That's awesome. Fellow warrior. Sure, we've all had past lives together. I'm sorry, that'll be my husband ringing. I won't, not going to answer it, don't worry. Yep, sorry.
Thank you, Karen.
Forgot to put my
Scott,
phone on.
how are you, Scott?
Hi, Phillippa. I had just one question. Really, would be what was the key to be able to get out? So many have gone through that just can't get out, and I can guarantee and sure that they threatened you, and your family must have felt very uncomfortable with you leaving the control of the group. I mean, it's very, very powerful people in those kind of groups. So what was the key, if there was one key for you to take that gave you the ability to get out of it, and then even speak about the experience, because you're going completely against their programming of silence? How did you do that?
Yeah, good question, Scott. I guess, unfortunately, as I mentioned, as I grew up, I led them to believe that I was one of them. And once I'd been taken overseas, I got to know who they were pals with, and how important the New Zealand group here was to people in the elite in the UK and overseas. So that gave me a heads up, that gave me information on them. So I just kept that to myself, and I just gathered information as much as I could. And luckily I did have a photographic memory. So I just stashed a whole lot of stuff that I thought would do me well. There were times when I lost heart, but then I would always get back in touch with that light within me and the memory of the white light, and that I was kind of on a mission at a deep level. So I had an overseas experience which was quite profound, and I met a young man who had a romantic interest in me, and I with him, to be honest. And we were on a arms deal exchange, selling arms as part of the cult business. And secretly he let me know that he could see the real me. And that gave me immense confidence, in trepidation, but confidence at the same time, that someone I felt could actually love me for who I was, and that there was love there, because I felt it. It felt similar to what I'd known, the kind of different but similar kind of love that I had for my brother. And trepidation, because it was like, oh my God, I'm this old, and someone can see me. So I knew that the time was coming near to me revealing my true self to the group back home here. And I was spiritually kind of spent. I knew I had to get out of it. I knew I was literally kind of spiritually dying within myself. I'd had enough. I knew I had enough on them as well. I knew what they were into. I knew who they were dealing with. I knew royalty. I knew prime ministers. I knew heads of state in America were into it. So I knew I had a lot of information on them. They'd shared a lot with me. So when I got back to New Zealand after that experience, it gave me the confidence within myself to finally say to them one day something. And this one day, I just, as I say, I just, you know, had enough. And it was just like, this is the day. In the moment, I just took the moment to say to this one particular doctor who was in the group, and I'd always kind of had to be his right-hand man. And another guy in the hierarchy was there, and we were getting ready for a particular ritual. And I just turned around to this doctor and said, no, I'm not doing it. And he said, what do you mean? I said, I'm not doing it. And he kind of looked horrified, and I just kind of, I just felt quite matter of fact about it, and he could see that within me. And I said blandly, and with confidence, I just said, no, I'm not one of you. I've never been one of you. And to cut a long story short, I mean, I could say a bit more about that, but I said something like, no, your number's up. You know, I've got all the information I need on you guys, and I'm out of here. And they were so horrified. And I physically grabbed this doctor, and the minute I knew that he was possibly going to challenge me on that, I grabbed him with force and I pushed him against the wall. And just that warrior rose up within me. Like, I don't know where that came from, but it was there. Something I'd been stashing for years and years and years and years, and it just came out that day. And it even took me by surprise. And he knew I meant business, because I'd seen his vulnerability and vulnerabilities in the group. And he could see it within me, just like that reptilian saw it within me. And the other guy who was standing there, who was high up in the hierarchy, he knew it too. And they let me walk out of there. I rang my father and he came and got me. And I rang him and I said, I'll be walking down the road, pick me up. And he did, which I was quite surprised at. I was prepared to just keep on walking. I didn't care whether I died or not. Didn't care, because I knew that I'd got out of it in my heart and spirit. I had got out. I didn't care what happened to me. And that was really hard, because I knew I was leaving a child within that group. Didn't know where that child was, because up until then I'd done everything to keep that child safe. But I became aware by that stage also too that I couldn't protect that child anymore. I had to leave that child behind, because there were other children's lives at stake. So I left, and my father picked me up on the side of the road, and I went home, and I probably shook, I think. Didn't say anything. And it was a few weeks after that I was severely punished. My parents dropped me off at this place, and I knew that I was probably going to be killed. And I was fearful, obviously, but I kind of didn't care, because I knew what they were going to do to me. I was expecting the worst.
What age were you at that point?
I would have been about 15 or 16. I can't remember, to be honest, exactly, because I haven't gone into it fully as much as I could, and I don't particularly want to, because healing from what they did to me took all of my energy. What they did was horrific, and I didn't think I was going to survive it, and I nearly didn't. And I was taken home. I was picked up by my parents, and I was taken home, and my mother nursed me. And I was coming in and out of my body. And it was only when I saw my mother nursing me, and I saw my mother's love for me, and I saw that in reality, and it was authentic, because I think she knew that I was on the, I was dying. And when I saw my mother's love, that allowed me to come back into my body and carry on. So that was how I got out. And after that, my father stole some money from his workplace. And I think he did that because the group dropped us. They dropped our family. And my father was vulnerable, and he did that as an emotional fallout from it. And he was sentenced. He didn't go to jail, but he got off on good behaviour, because I think someone stood up for him, and the group probably got him off because they didn't want to make a big thing of it, I believe. But anyway, so because of what my father did, we were too vulnerable. We were too hot. We were too what's the word? Yeah, I think just too risky. So they just dropped us. So it was years after that. I pretty much put one foot in front of the other. After that, I slowly, physically, sorry, my phone. I physically just took time to recover from that. And sorry, I'm just going to put this on flight mode. Yeah, just I still didn't feel safe, but yeah, but it took a few years after that to finally feel like, okay, well, nothing's happened. So I just slowly but surely kind of just kept my silence, because one of the other things I told them when I left, I said to dupe them. I knew in my heart that I wouldn't keep this promise that I made to them, but I said to them, I'll keep my silence if you don't touch my son. And I kept my silence for quite a few years, obviously, but I knew that someday I would break that silence. I just needed to find the right people to speak to, and I finally found my counsellor, and that's what enabled me to finally start speaking. Just speaking to one person made a hell of a difference. And she was, as I said before, she was an angel sent from heaven, I'm sure, because not a lot of counsellors back 35 years ago knew about satanic ritual abuse. A lot of people were just coming to terms with sexual abuse, let alone satanic ritual abuse. So she was a gem, and she gave me time, more than an hour, for the, usual counselling people that people give. She gave me 2-3 hours sometimes twice a week, and I needed it. And she was available.
Well, since you did that quite a while ago, you must have crossed paths with some of those people. What is that interaction like? They just ignore you, or they leave you alone, or walk the other way? What do they do when you run into them?
Yeah, good question. Well, a lot of them have died, passed on, because they were my parents' vintage. And if I suspect anyone that I meet in the present who I feel unsafe with, or I feel that I recognize, I'm very good at just observing. I became a very good observer growing up. So I'm very good at being able to just go, hi, just be normal. But I know with the dissociation and the ability to compartmentalize things, I take very good notes of how people look, their body language, their mannerisms. I don't forget faces. I forget names, but I don't forget faces. So if I recognize them and they don't recognize me, that's fine. But if they recognize me, and I've had a few people recognize me, I know when they recognize me, I just ignore them, as you say, just carry on as normal. But I notice that they recognize me. And I don't know whether that's been because they recognize me as another survivor or a satanic ritual abuse person that, from when I was younger, or whether they're recognizing something else about me. I'm not sure, but I know that they're recognizing me. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Very good questions. We'll have one more question before we close. Lou, how are you, Lou?
Hi, Jude. Thanks. Thanks a lot. I'm doing fine. And thanks, Phillippa. This is quite encouraging. And the more you talk about this, I guess it works in reverse, helping your own healing. So I think it's great, not only for others to learn, but for you to heal yourself. This is not an easy thing. Scott had just placed basically the questions that I had, and the only one remain would be, how did you cope, or how did you come to terms with your siblings and your immediate family, or the family around? Because it's clear that was not a one-step thing. It took time, not only for you, but you were not isolated, especially that one brother that you were more attached to him.
Yeah, good question. In the initial stages of healing, I let my parents know that I had been abused, sexually abused. I let my mother know that I had been sexually abused, but I didn't mention anything about the satanic ritual abuse. So I became after that, my father didn't see me at all. It wasn't that I didn't see my father, it was my father never came to visit me after he learned that I'd been sexually abused, and I had only told my mother about that. And I didn't even tell my mother that I knew who it was. I just told her that I'd been sexually abused by someone. And she didn't even ask who it was. I just said, I know. And so I was busy going to therapy, and I didn't have a lot of time or energy. So I didn't see a lot of my parents after that. My mother would come to visit me without my father. And there was a time when I'd had a very difficult session at counselling, and my mother came to visit me, and I just couldn't cope with what she was saying to me about the rest of the family, just general stuff. And I said, look, Mum, I've had a very difficult session today, and I haven't even been asked, knowing what knowing what I'm going through, I haven't even been asked how I'm getting on, or how things are for me, because it was clear I was physically clear that it was physically clear that I was downhearted, and I was, you know, physically kind of almost catatonic, didn't have a lot of energy. So I found it quite strange of how I was being talked to and communicated with by my mother. Anyway, because I said that to her, I got a very negative response from her. So I asked her to leave. And from then on, I didn't see my mother. She didn't come and ever visit me again. So that kind of made it a little bit easier to cope, because I could just have my own space and not have to worry about, you know, meeting with my family. My other brother, I told him about the fact that I'd been sexually abused, my elder brother or eldest brother. And after that, he didn't have any contact with me whatsoever. I didn't speak to my brother that was just a little bit older than I was, my middle brother, at all about anything. Until a few years ago when I emailed him to say that I'd done some interviews about this stuff. And I said, if you would like to talk about it, that's fine. But if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine as well. I said, I know this stuff might resonate with you, but again, if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. I can completely understand that you might not want to go there for yourself. And we talked on the phone after that, and I said, oh, did you get my email? And he said, yes, I did, and that's all we need to say about that. So I've respected his wishes. So, and he lives outside New Zealand. So we've just carried on a normal relationship without talking about anything. Yep. So, and I can completely comprehend why he might not want to acknowledge anything. And I have to respect his feelings and privacy. Yeah. As far as my other family, my father was an only child, so that was kind of easy. My mother had a brother and three sisters. Her brother passed away before he lived in the North Island, so I didn't really see him much, and he passed away. But I did speak to an aunt that my mother was close with, although my mother's sisters were quite close anyway, but this particular one was a little bit closer. And I spoke to her about the fact that my father had sexually abused me. I didn't mention any satanic ritual abuse stuff at that stage. And I got such a negative reaction from her. She was horrified at me. And I stood my ground with her, and completely was very assertive with her in a very calm, kind way. And at the end of it, she had to kind of admit that, okay, well, I'm obviously not going to get the better of you, or that was my sense of it, her reaction. And I left, and as I was leaving, she said, well, don't tell Auntie this and don't tell Auntie that about this, will you? And I said, no, I won't. And I didn't. But that I didn't agree to that because of why she said that, or why she was saying that. I just knew that it was a no-go area. So again, that kind of made it easy for me. And that kind of dealt with my family and how I coped with it, and I just got on with my healing. And that kind of very clearly let me know who I could talk to and who I couldn't talk to in my family. Yeah. So, and also with friends, you know, there were people I could talk to and there were people I couldn't talk to. particularly ones who said, oh, just get over yourself, you know, get on with it. But of course, they didn't know, you know, they didn't know the extent of the abuse. They didn't, you know, they didn't know that it, you know, it was very difficult to voice satanic ritual abuse back then, you know, because I knew that it would scare people. I knew people, you know, I was, you know, if people saw me in a dissociated state, and that was in the very early stages, a couple of friends saw me in a dissociated, regressed childlike state, and they just thought I was bananas. So, you know, I'd already got that response from people, so I knew that was a no-go area. So I just got on with it on my own. And I had a good friend, female friend, who had been sexually abused. So she was like an angel too. She was a godsend. She supported me and helped me through a lot. So I was very fortunate to have her. And then later on in years of counselling, I met another satanic ritual abuse survivor through my counsellor in New Zealand here. And that helped an enormous lot. And I also met another sexual abuse victim of the doctor that I'd mentioned before, who was in the group, and his daughter took him to court here in New Zealand. And I was able to speak to her about, not a lot about satanic ritual abuse, but I was able to let her know that I knew her father, that she was not ready to acknowledge anything about the satanic ritual abuse, but she knew that other stuff had gone on. Yeah, so that was very validating for me. And also in Christchurch I can't remember when, in the 90s, I think there was a satanic ritual abuse case came up with the civic case here in Christchurch. And I met one of the mothers of one of the children who had been a witness in that case. And so that was very validating. And of course, they wanted me to speak out at that time, but I didn't have, I felt confident to speak, but I didn't have enough information. I hadn't recovered enough within myself to speak about anything back then. And it's taken all these years later to get it all together, fit all the pieces together, and feel completely confident about speaking.
Thank you, Lou. And Phillippa, from the bottom of all our hearts, I'm sure I can speak for everyone here, our hearts are open to you. Thank you for speaking your truth and bringing out one of the worst violations that could ever happen to a person. I know you're not the only one. I honour you bringing light and truth of what's going on, so that this will hopefully come to an end. I just honour you for who you are. You're just a beautiful soul. I'd also like to wish you well in everything you're doing from here on forward. I know we're going to be collaborating, which is brilliant. And you had so much wisdom and so much knowing that you can't go wrong now. You're over that bridge. It's the start of a whole new beginning in many, many ways, which you have started already with your beautiful work that you do and the gifting you give to people to help them heal. So God bless you, Phillippa. Thank you for coming on A Cosmic Cuppa with Jude on our 5D and Beyond platform. Thank you to Lee also for the opportunity. If you are on YouTube watching this, please like, share and subscribe. Anyone can join 5D and Beyond and see what we do and become part of a beautiful soul family that support each other. And I think that's very important in these times. So as we know, peace on earth. It starts with you. It starts with me. God bless and good night, everyone.